Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly, not out loud, not for me, but in that quiet place inside yourself where you don't perform and you don't pretend. Just answer it honestly, dot honestly. Are you winning? Not at the scoreboard version of life that everyone posts on social media. Not the highlight reel. Not the curated version. Not the one you describe at family dinners when someone asks how things are going. I mean the real version. The private version. Private version. The one you think about in the shower, in the car. In those 15 minutes before sleep comes when the noise stops and the truth gets louder. In that version of your life, the one no one else sees. Are you winning? Because if the answer is anything other than a clear, confident, full bodied yes, if there's hesitation, if there's a quiet ache behind the answer, if somewhere in you there's a voice that says, not really, not yet, not the way I always thought I would be, then you are exactly where you need to be. Right here, right now. Because the next words out of my mouth are going to change something for you. Not fix everything, not solve everything, change something. And sometimes the right thing changed at the right moment is all it takes to start a chain reaction that alters the entire course of a life. I know that because it happened to me. On a night, I almost quit everything. I'm going to tell you about that night. But first, I need to tell you about a woman named Rosa. Rosa was 51 years old. She worked as a bookkeeper for a mid-sized logistics company. She had worked there for 22 years. 22 years of showing up early, staying late, knowing the numbers better than the people who own the company, covering for mistakes that weren't hers, being the quiet engine that kept things running while other people got the credit and the promotions and the corner offices. 22 years, 22 years. And on a Thursday afternoon in February, not a Monday, not some dramatic first of the month kind of day, just a regular Thursday, her manager called her into his office and told her that due to restructuring, her position had been eliminated. They were going in a different direction. She would receive a standard severance package. Security would help her with her things. And Rosa, who had given 22 years, who knew where every number was buried, who had celebrated the birthdays of people who couldn't now meet her eyes, Rosa packed her things into a box. She walked to her car and she sat there for almost 2 hours, not crying, just sitting, just trying to locate somewhere inside herself a reason to start the car and drive home. I met Rosa 6 months later. She was in the front row of a talk I was giving at a community center. And after the event, she came up to me and said something that I have carried with me ever since. She said, for 22 years, I played by the rules, and the rules didn't protect me. And she said it without bitterness. She said it the way you say a mathematical fact. 2 plus 2 equals 4. I played by the rules, and the rules didn't protect me. And I looked at her, and I said, Rosa, that's because you were playing by the wrong rules. Because here is the thing that most of us are never told. Most of us go through life playing by a set of rules that were written by someone else. Rules that were handed to us by our parents, our schools, our cultures, our industries, the particular decade we grew up in. Rules like, work hard and you will be rewarded. Be loyal and loyalty will be returned. Stay quiet and your turn will come. Follow the path and the path will take care of you. And these rules are not always wrong, but they are incomplete and they were designed for a world that no longer fully exists. And the people who truly win in life, not the lucky ones, not the born into the right family ones, but the ones who built something real and lasting and deeply their own. Those people are operating by a different set of rules. A different set entirely. Today, I'm going to give you 5 of them. Not tips, not hacks, not the top 5 productivity tricks from people who have never actually struggled. 5 rules, deep, structural, fundamental rules. The kind that change how you see yourself and how you move through the world. The kind that once you understand them, you cannot ununderstand. The kind that will still be true when everything else has changed. Are you ready? I mean that literally. Because some of what I'm going to say is going to be uncomfortable. Some of it is going to bump directly against things you have believed for a long time. Some of it is going to ask something of you, and I need you to be ready for that. I need you to be sitting in a posture, physically, mentally, emotionally, of receiving, not defending, not debating, not debating, not already composing your counter-argument, receiving. Because the thing about truth is that it requires open hands, so open your hands. Figuratively and honestly, if you want, literally. Open them. And let's begin. Rule number one. Are you listening? Rule number one, define winning for yourself or someone else will define it for you. And you will spend your entire life chasing someone else's finish line. I need you to understand how insidious this is. How quietly, how completely, how relentlessly the world works to tell you what winning looks like. From the moment you are old enough to understand comparison, which is approximately from the moment you enter any school anywhere on earth, you are being handed a definition. Winning looks like the highest grade, like the best performance, like the most friends, the nicest clothes, the most impressive college, the most prestigious career, the biggest salary, the biggest house, the most visible success. And this definition is delivered so consistently by so many different voices from so many different directions that most of us absorb it as though it were oxygen, without questioning it, without asking where it came from, without asking whether it fits. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat down, completely alone, completely quiet, with no phone, no input, no one else's voice in the room, and asked yourself, what does winning actually mean to me? Not to my parents, not to my industry, not to the people I went to school with, not to whoever is currently at the top of whatever leaderboard I've been secretly measuring myself against. To me, in my actual, specific, unrepeatable, one-of-a-kind life. Most people have been so busy pursuing the inherited definition that the question feels almost reckless, almost dangerous. Almost dangerous, because you ask it, you might get an answer that disrupts everything. You might find out that you've been climbing a ladder that is leaning against the wrong wall. You might find out that the life you have been building, the one that looks very successful from certain angles, is missing the thing that would actually make you feel like you've won on. I know a man, I'll call him Patrick, who spent 15 years building a career in finance. By every conventional measure, Patrick was winning spectacularly. The salary was extraordinary. The title was impressive. The apartment was in the right neighborhood, and the car was the right make, and the vacation photos were correctly exotic. And Patrick was miserable. Not in a dramatic, visible way. In the way that a very competent person is miserable. Quietly, efficiently, with enough self-discipline not to let it show. He would wake up every morning and feel a weight. Not quite dread, more like displacement. Like he was living someone else's life and doing a very good job of it and feeling absolutely nothing. And the tragedy, the real tragedy of Patrick's story is that he knew. Somewhere he always knew. He had known since he was 23 years old and had taken the finance job because it was what his father expected. And because the money was undeniable. And because it felt responsible and adult and certain. He had known and he had talked himself out of knowing again and again, year after year, with increasingly sophisticated arguments about security and practicality, and the right time to make changes that somehow never arrived. Patrick came to me at 38. He said, I feel like I've won the game I never actually wanted to play. And I said, then stop. And he looked at me like I had suggested he'd jump off a building. And I said, not recklessly, not without a plan, but stop pretending you don't know what you want. You've always known. The question is whether you're willing to bet on it. And Patrick did something that took extraordinary courage. He quit. He started over. He went back to the thing he had always loved, which was building things, actual physical things, and he started a small construction and renovation company. And for 2 years it was hard, really hard, financially terrifying, ego-bruising, sleep-depriving hard. And Patrick will tell you, and he has told me this more than once, that those 2 years of hard were worth more than all 15 years of comfortable. It is because for the first time he was playing his own game, running his own race. And even on the hardest days, even when things went wrong, there was something underneath it, some baseline quality of aliveness that had been completely absent in the finance office. He felt it. The difference between going through the motions with excellence and actually showing up. So rule number one is not just a nice thought. It is structural. It is foundational. Everything else we're going to talk about today depends on it. Because you cannot win a game you haven't defined. You cannot run a race you haven't chosen. And you cannot. No matter how talented you are, no matter how hard you work, no matter how many of the right boxes you check, you cannot feel like you're winning if you are pursuing someone else's victory. So I'm giving you permission. And maybe you need to hear this. Maybe you need explicit permission. I'm giving you permission to decide what winning means for you, not the version that would impress your parents at Christmas. Not the version that would make a certain person jealous or a certain voice in your head go quiet. The version that when you're old and you look back at the shape of your life would make you say, yes, yes, I did that. Yes, that did that. Yes, that was mine. Yes, it was worth it. Define it. Write it down if you need. Fafe, hold it. Because from this moment forward, that is the only finish line that matters. Rule number 2. And this one is going to sting a little, and I'm going to need you to stay with me. Rule number 2. Take radical ownership. Take radical ownership, not some of it, not the comfortable parts, all of it. I want to talk about blame. Because blame is something that every human being on earth has access to. And it is the most comfortable and most destructive drug available. It requires no prescription. It produces immediate relief. And it is absolutely, completely, comprehensively lethal to your ability to win. Here's how blame works. Something goes wrong in your career, in your relationship, in your finances, in your health, in your life. And your brain, which is always trying to protect you, immediately goes looking for an explanation. And the explanation it prefers, the explanation that produces the most immediate relief, is one that is located outside yourself. He did this. She said that. The market crashed. The timing was wrong. The system is unfair. I didn't have the connections. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the support. I didn't have the luck. And sometimes, often, those things are true. Sometimes the system is unfair. Sometimes the timing is genuinely terrible. Sometimes people do betray you and abandon you and pull the rug out from under you. I am not dismissing any of that. But here is the thing about blame, about locating the cause of your situation entirely outside yourself. When you do that, when you put the cause outside yourself, you also put the solution outside yourself. And now you are stuck. You are waiting for the system to become fair. Waiting for the people who wronged you to make it right. Waiting for the circumstances to change. Waiting for the luck to shift. And the world, the busy, indifferent, absolutely not waiting for you world, moves on without you. And another month passes, and another year. And another set of opportunities goes by. And you are still waiting. Still building your case, still absolutely certain about who is responsible for your position, and still exactly where you were. Radical ownership is the antidote to that. And it is radical because it goes further than most people are comfortable going. It doesn't say you were responsible for everything that happened to you. Some things happened to you that you had no control over and did not deserve. Radical ownership doesn't argue with that. What radical ownership says is this. Regardless of what happened, and regardless of who was responsible for it, I am 100% responsible for what happens next.